Every journey begins with a single step. Perhaps your journey starts with this tale. Some stories awaken something deep within, a forgotten memory, or a call you never knew existed. Now listen closely. Feel the wind, drifting through the trees, rustling the leaves, waking the forest to a brand new day.
Once upon a time, there was a vast and mysterious forest. The trees stood tall, their branches thick, sometimes hiding the sky. The river was cool. The wind carried soft whispers. In the morning, golden sunlight filtered through the leaves. At night, the stars illuminated the woods. Many creatures called this forest home. Birds sang from the branches. Squirrels leaped from tree to tree, and deer drank by the riverbank. But among them, one stood out, the wolf pack. Wolves were always together, running, hunting, resting. They lived as one, they learned as one. When the moon climbed high into the sky, they howled, reminding each other of their strength. Within the pack, the elders shared their wisdom. The strong taught the young how to hunt. And the pups, they grew through play. As the sun rose higher, the forest began to stir. The wolf pack had spent the night safely in their den, and with the new day, they once again merged into the heart of the wilderness. For the pups, morning meant playtime. They chased each other through the tall grass, sometimes tumbling, sometimes spinning swiftly. Some climbed rocks, testing their strength, while others darted under branches, honing their agility. But the forest was not merely a playground. It was full of mysteries, each corner offering a new discovery, and each discovery brought a lesson waiting to be learned. Play is the first step to learning. Those who are curious always find something new. Just then, one pup noticed something moving by the riverbank. Small yet quick, a crab. Nosing closer, he sniffed at it with curiosity. And then, the crab's claws had clamped shut. The pup jumped back in surprise, and the other pups giggled at the sight.
Curiosity can lead to sweet discoveries or small lessons.
But this was only the beginning, because that day the forest had much more to teach them. As the day went on, the pups' playful energy began to fade. Because the elder wolves had started to move, it was time to hunt. The pups watched closely, eager to learn. How did the elders move? How did they track their prey? The great wolves walked in a single line, their paws stepping precisely into the prints left before them, silent, focused, strong.
Wisdom is hidden in the steps carefully followed.
The pups decided to follow, but the forest never offered easy paths. One pup got tangled in the thick underbrush. He struggled, trying to free himself, but he couldn't. The others quickly gathered around him. One of the elder wolves noticed from afar. He stepped forward to help, but another elder stopped him. Let them find their own way.
True strength is rising on your own, without waiting for a helping hand.
Working together, the pups freed their trapped friend. Now they were stronger than before, because they had helped one another. And the forest had taught them another lesson.
In the wild, every mistake is a chance to grow.
As the day came to an end, a peaceful stillness settled over the forest. The moon rose high, casting silver light over the land. The stars twinkled like scattered jewels in the sky. The elder wolves stood guard, ensuring the pack's safety. The pups were preparing to retreat into their den. But then, one of them heard a distant sound. A howl, deep and strong, echoing through the night. Excitement flickered in his eyes. The others listened closely, ears perked in curiosity. And suddenly, all at once, they lifted their heads to the sky and tried to howl. Little voices mixed with the great ones. They knew that one day they too would howl like the elders. But first, there was still much to learn. Morning had come, but the forest felt different. The air was heavy, the wind uneasy. The sky had turned gray, thick clouds hiding the sun. The branches of the trees swayed gently, as if whispering warnings of an unseen danger. Every creature in the forest could feel something approaching. Squirrels scurried up to the highest branches. Birds soared in silence, disappearing into the sky. By the river, deer lifted their heads, ears twitching at the stillness around them. The air grew quiet. The wind sharpened. The elder wolves stood watchful, eyes locked onto the forest. But the wolf pups, they knew nothing about storms. They ran, they played, they explored. Everything felt the same to them. One pup sprinted ahead, chasing after another, spinning in circles over the soft grass. Another leaped, clearing a fallen branch, landing with pride. The elders watched them in silence, because in the world of pups, storms did not exist. But soon the wind would find them too.
The forest speaks to those who listen.
And then suddenly something burst from the underbrush. Fast, agile, its fur a mix of gray and brown. A rabbit. The pup's eyes gleamed with excitement. The rabbit darted away with a powerful leap and instinct took hold. The pups dashed through the grass, trampling it under their eager paws. They weaved through twists and turns, pushing themselves forward. But the rabbit was too fast. It never paused for even a moment. The elder wolves watched from afar. Was this just a game, or was it a lesson in disguise?
Sometimes a game turns into a test without warning.
As the rabbit sped up, so did the wolf pups. But as they neared the river, some of them hesitated. The strong current made them stop in their tracks. Yet one among them didn't notice. He saw only the rabbit. His steps grew faster. His paws pressed harder against the earth. In a single bound, the rabbit leaped to the other side of the river. The others stopped. But he did not. With a single reckless leap, he flung himself across. He continued the chase, unaware of what was happening around him. But now the wind had grown fierce. Tree branches snapped and tumbled to the ground. For a brief moment, he lifted his head. And then he realized the others were no longer there. He was alone.
Sometimes, a single step leads to a path with no return.
The wolf pups on the other side of the river dashed toward the pack to raise the alarm. Some, however, refused to leave. They gathered by the riverbank, lifting their tiny voices in desperate howls. Perhaps their calls would reach the elders. Or maybe Gale would find a way back. Gale, in a panic, decided to return. But the water was now higher than before. The rocks he had once stepped on were disappearing beneath the rushing currents. Without hesitation, he leaped onto the first rock, then the second. But as the storm raged on, the strong current took hold and pulled him under. Gale struggled in the raging river, his small paws flailing. But the current was too powerful. He had no control over where he was being taken.
Sometimes you cannot control where the wind carries you.
Gale had been caught in the river's powerful current. The waters rushed him forward, spinning him between swirling rocks and drifting branches. His eyes widened in fear. His paws flailed helplessly in the air.
Sometimes the greatest waves swallow the smallest souls.
At that moment, the wolf pups who had run back from the river reached the pack and raised the alarm. Panic spread and the entire pack rushed toward the river in search of the lost Gale. The whole pack was now in motion. The elder wolves spotted Gale struggling in the raging waters. They sprinted along the riverbank, following the current. There were obstacles ahead, fallen trees, waterlogged ground, and deep mud. But they did not stop, because Gale was alone, lost in the wild waters of the forest. His mother and father led the charge. His siblings ran close behind, their eyes locked on the river, breathless with fear. Gale, desperate, turned his head and saw shadows on the shore. The pack was there, but the river was carrying him further and further away.
The wind is sometimes a force that carries you forward, and sometimes a fate that drags you away.
The rain pounded harder, thunder rumbled across the sky, but nothing was louder than the howls of the great wolves, and Gale could still hear them. Gale looked at his pack one last time, but the current refused to let him go. Amid the swirling waters, a rock suddenly loomed before him. Before he could react, he crashed into it hard. His vision darkened, his strength drained away. The pack kept running, desperate to keep up. One by one, the exhausted pups fell behind. But the elder wolves pressed on with all their might, until they reached the waterfall. Gale, unconscious, was being dragged toward the edge. The river did not stop. And then, he fell. Lost in the churning foam, he disappeared. The great wolves skidded to a halt at the cliff's edge. Frantically, they searched for a way down. But the cliffs were steep, there was no safe path. Some wolves lifted their heads and howled with all their might, calling out to the one who had vanished. Others ran along the cliffs, searching for a way to descend. But in the swirling mist of the waterfall, Gale was already gone. Perhaps Gale's body had been lost to the cold, relentless waters, but his journey was far from over. A world of unknowns awaited him. When he opened his eyes again, nothing would be the same. And deep within the forest, the echoes of howls still called his name.
Where has the wind carried Gale? What fate awaits him? Follow his journey, because sometimes the greatest storms carry the smallest hopes far beyond what we can see. But stories never truly end.